Good evening. I'm Gloria, and this is Open Minds Podcast, Waking the Dead Ghost Stories. And this is the pilot episode. Here we go. Well, tonight we have an amazing ghost story. My guest tonight, who's going to share, oh my God, if you're not going to get scared after this, I don't know, you must be fearless because reading this, my guest, October Hallam, I mean, I was scared. I spent my time going, why doesn't she get out now? Why is she staying there? Why is she staying there? So tonight I have October Hallam, who's going to share her amazing ghost story. And it's case number one. Case number one, what became of the Sacramento ghost? Now, if you come online and you're live in the chat, you can ask a question. You can give your opinion, be nice to both of us because it is the pilot. So, October, welcome to Open Minds Podcast.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly. And
Great.
we should be all covered up and to make it more spooky. That's the way we roll. It's the way we roll. So if my voice sounds a bit hoarse, I've got a tree pollen hay fever at the moment.
Uh-oh.
So if I sound like, it's because of that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set the scene, everybody. So sit back, get comfortable, okay? Don't turn the lights out though. Whatever you do, don't turn the lights out. And I'm going to set the scene for case number one. What become of the Sacramento ghost? Back in the mid 1990s, October was in her early 20s. She rented a home in Sacramento, a little pocket in the downtown area called Land Park. It was an older home built in the 50s, very plain, actually with a little fake well in the front garden. About a block away was one of the oldest cemeteries in Sacramento. You know where this is going, guys. The home itself sat in an odd angle on the corner of two streets that intersected with each other. It was evident that it had not been lived in for a very long time because of the amount of dust and cobwebs that had made their way throughout the home. It's over to you, October. At the time, you had 4 young children. Go.
I was in a little bit change of the story. I was in my mid-20s, but that's okay. um, so I had gone to Switzerland for about a month on a holiday, and then I had rented this not sight unseen, but I had basically seen the outside of the house, and they had opened the front door, and I kind of peeked in, and I said, "I'll take it." I just because I was going to Switzerland, so I needed to get something tied up before I got back. And my sister, who was caring for my children while I was in Switzerland, agreed to take them and also let me stay with her at night while I cleaned it. So here I am. I get back from Switzerland, and I'm, I'm in it, and I'm happy. I'm good. I'm cleaning the house and I'm unpacking. My kids are in school, and then my sister would pick them up because it was going to take me a good week to clean this. It was pretty dirty, and I'm the first day I'm there and I'm unpacking, and I get this like ominous feeling around me, like something wasn't right, and like I was being watched. And so I just, the air was really stale, and I started to clean, and I felt like a presence, and it was like so eerie that I started to say out loud to myself, like, okay, this is weird. Like, I feel like I'm being watched, but I'm saying this out loud.
Weren't you scared? Weren't you scared?
I was scared because I was like, but then I said, April, this is or October, this you're playing tricks on yourself because you're just in this old house and nobody's with you, so stop it. So I just kind of shooed those feelings away. So the shrubbery and the lawn and all that outside was just way like overgrown. It looked like a jungle out there because it hadn't been kept up in so long. And so I'm talking to myself out loud, and increasingly getting this because I'm like wiping down the drapes, and these drapes are like from the 60s, like old school
Oh God.
drapes, old school
Yeah.
wallpaper on parts of the house. The refrigerator
Yeah.
was like the rounded top with like the
Oh
pull
God.
handle like you see in the 50s, like I Love
Oh
Lucy
my
kind of.
God.
Yeah, like it was just, this house was like a time capsule, and it had just like a lot of it was still like in the 50s and 60s, right? And this is like at
Hmm.
the mid 90s, and I love vintage stuff, so I felt it was quite charming, but little did I know. So
Hmm.
I'm cleaning, and then I just felt this weird thing, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I say out loud, watch, you know, watch some little lady come in here and tell me there was like a death or something, or somebody was murdered in this house. And
Is
I went,
that what you thought? Is that what you thought?
it's not just what I thought, Gloria. I actually said it out loud. I'm like, ha 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 ha. It's like laughing.
Oh
Like,
my God!
I,
Go on.
yeah. So I mean, I'm cleaning, and all of a sudden across the street, I can hear the sound of blowers and mowers and choppers and all this
Hmm.
stuff. So there's a landscaping crew outside at the across the street neighbor's house. So I ventured out there and I waved them down. Now they couldn't speak very good English, so but we communicated well enough. I pointed at the house and the overgrown
Yeah.
shrubbery, and they nodded. They knew that I needed them to help me out. So they
Hmm.
said, they let me know when they were done that they would do a quick fix for me and then be back in like a week or two to, finish up the rest, but at least clean it up.
Yeah.
So no problem. So they're out there and they come to my house and I go back in and I'm cleaning, and it was pretty hot that day. So I went out there and I offered them some water midway through what they were doing. And we were trying to communicate. They spoke Spanish and I speak like poquito español, like that means like nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
uno cerveza, por favor, is about all I know. So so we're out there talking, and this little old lady, kind of starts walking up the street, and she's like in a walker,
Yeah.
and she's struggling to get through the sidewalk with the cracks and stuff, and she kind of waves at the landscaper, like waves him down. And then I kind of looked at the interchange of the body language and the facial recognition between the
Yeah.
two parties, and I realized that they were her landscapers as well. So she
Hmm.
walks up to me and she says, um and as soon as I see her, my stomach sunk, because I just knew, this wasn't good. When I said some little old lady was going to tell me somebody died in the house, I
Yeah.
just knew she was it. She was the message
She
harbinger
was
of
the
death.
one. She
Yeah.
was the one.
Yeah, the
I
harbinger of
mean,
death, right? Like I was like, crap, I'm gonna get this is gonna
and you
creep in.
did, guys. I've got to tell you, she did. The harbinger of bad news. She did. Okay, onward. Let's go to the little old lady.
So the little lady comes up and she's like, I was wondering what's keeping my gardener so long. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am. I'm really respectful. She's like probably in her 80s. I said, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry, ma'am. I just, she goes, oh, and gets really quiet and kind of looks over to her shoulder and sees the corner house that I just rented. And she's like, oh, do you live here? And
Oh
my
God.
stomach just sank. I was just I just cringed because I knew something was about to come out of her mouth that wasn't going to be so good. And I was like, no, April, just don't let your imagination, play tricks on you. Like, so I said, yes. I said, I just, I'm fixing it up as we speak. I love the hardwood floors. I'm cleaning, the exchange, because you could see in her eyes that she was just like I could read her eyes, and her eyes were like, this isn't good, and I was trying not to read too much into it. So I'm just like, yeah, I'm fixing up, and I'm thinking to myself, what is so weird? Because when you walked into this house, because now this is an old ranch, American ranch, it's like a
Yeah.
3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house.
Yeah.
And when you walk in, the front door swings open, and there might be a little bit of a 2 feet clearance from the edge of the door, and then you faced a closet. So you walked in,
Yeah.
and that's your hall closet, right? That's where you put all
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
coats and stuff, right? Well, the floor was cut out of the entrance of the house. There was no hardwood floor. It was just the subfloor. And they
So
hadn't
someone had removed it.
somebody
Someone
had
had
removed
removed
it.
it.
And I was thinking to myself, why would they cut out this beautiful hardwood floors from the 1950s and
Hmm.
leave the rest of it, but just cut out this section? Because I did have the floors refinished, at the
Yeah.
time. So I walk in, but they were going to come tile it. That's what they're going to do. They're going to like
Yeah,
tile the
yeah.
entranceway, right? So
Oh, have I missed? Hold on a second. Hold on, hold
sure.
on. So, did the old lady on the first encounter tell you the history of the house, or was it later?
Oh, it's coming.
Oh, it's coming. Okay, right. Go, go, go. It's
It's
coming. I'm
okay.
just getting in this story now.
Okay. So, I had kind of thought, said, yes, I'm fixing it up. And I love the hardwood floors. And then I said, the entrance way, there's, some of the floors were moving, but the management company told me that they're going to be laying tile. And I
Mm.
said, but I love the rest of the rest of the house. It's just really dirty and dusty. And she's like, oh, well, then you don't know what happened here. And I said, shit.
Oh
This
God,
is
here we go.
I now my throat, like you get that throaty kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
this sense of dread. And right now my heart is actually pumping. Like it's pumping because
I
just
mean, mine's pumping now. I mean, I've read the script, but I'm just hearing you relay this.
so
I'm thinking what she's about to tell you, guys in the audience. She moves in and stays there. So do go on. Do go on, October.
so my throat tightens, my fists clench. And I respond and with it, and this is paraphrasing right now, but like, no, I don't know what happened, but could you tell me? And you could see the hesitancy in her eyes. She was, oh dear, it happened so long ago. I really wouldn't be worried about it. And I'm like, oh man, this is
Yeah,
not good at all.
yeah.
She was trying to avoid answering me at whatever cost. Now, everybody, this is like right at the birth of the internet. So newspapers weren't really online yet. Like this was just really like, MySpace, I don't even think was up yet. If it was, it wasn't really, you know what I mean? It was just
Yeah,
starting to kind of take off. So it wasn't like I could just go on a computer and Google the address and see something. I would have had to go onto like the microfiche to the
yeah,
library and find
yeah,
the
yeah.
newspaper articles, right? So I was like begged her eventually. I said, just please just tell me what happened in here because I knew something. And this is, I mean, I've been gifted my whole life psychically and
Mm,
intuitively, but this is before I really owned it or understood it.
yeah,
Right. So I was
yeah,
scared of this. I was really, really scared of this.
yeah.
So she goes on to tell me she lived in this neighborhood in the same house as she was in for like 50 years. So she like knew
Uh,
everybody in like the neighborhood and all the
yeah.
stories of all, everybody's family and all that. So my heart's pumping, I'm racing, and I'm like set in fear now. And she's, well, dear, we don't really like to speak about these things, but it is such a shame what happened to them. And then there was them, the word them, which meant plural.
God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
plural. Not one, but two or three or four, right? So I'm like, at this point, I'm like, oh man, because I had spent all of my money on the deposit, the first couple of months rent, the last month's rent, and then I had
Yeah.
paid, service to come in and help me clean and get the floors done and stuff. So I was like in this. I wasn't gonna be able to go anywhere for a while. I was a single mom,
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yep, and she proceeds to tell me. So apparently, over like a decade ago, there was an African American family that lived in the home, and
Hmm.
they had two children. They're a boy and a girl, and they were both gone. They were both out on their own. The young man apparently had some drug problems, and the young woman was married with a couple of children. This is the story I'm getting. I never validated any of these facts about the family, so just FYI, this is what she was telling me.
Yeah.
And so one day, the older gentleman, they were just at retirement, or he had just retired, and he ends up dying, and from I think a heart attack, she said.
Uh-huh.
So this older woman was very sad, and she was just kind of depressed, and so she ends up retiring, and then she starts to get out there again, and she ends up meeting this another man, and she falls in love, and it's pretty common for widowers to fall, or widows to kind of fall in love with, get remarried if they've been married for a long time. And so she meets this younger guy, they fall in love, she marries him. Her kids aren't too happy because there's a pretty severe age difference between the two. But for all intents and purposes, everything looks, he's fine, he's happy, she's happy, that's great.
Hmm.
So the son starts coming around and borrowing money from the mom. The new husband's getting angry because she's giving all of her money away because this young man has a drug addiction
Hmm.
problem. And so what I think intuitively would happen, and this is where it's like the rubber meets the road in the story, where
Yeah.
something happened because The son convinces the mom that the new husband is cheating on her.
Uh-huh.
And now this woman has put everything into this new marriage. Like I guess she was basically the bankroll, because she was retired, she had her husband's pension, and he was basically not working, and he was kind of living off of her, that kind of
Uh-huh.
scenario. So I think the young son was trying to get a wedge between the two of them so he
Uh-huh.
could, if something happened to his mother, he could get the money from the mom and
I'm
the
with you.
deceased
So
father.
I'm getting the feeling here now, trepidation. One
Uh-huh.
husband's dead, and it's not looking good for husband number two.
Well, and we move on. so So I'm listening to this little old lady. She's about 4'11", 5 foot tops, and I'm 5'9". So I'm towering over her, and she's looking up at me, and I can just see her pause, and I'm like, oh man, this isn't gonna be good. And then I start
Hmm.
thinking about the floor missing in the front walkway, and I'm like, the front entrance, the foyer, and I was like, this is not good, right? So
Hmm.
she goes, well, honey, and then it happened. It was a holiday weekend, and the postman came on Tuesday because they had a package to deliver to the family. And the front door, now remember, when you walked into this, you just walked right to a closet. That's what you
Yeah.
faced. And then you had to turn right to look into the living area. Okay.
Yeah.
He said that the door was slightly ajar, a couple of inches.
Hmm.
And so he just kind of like, he called out for the woman because, he'd been the post man there for many, many years. So he had
Yeah.
known, people in the neighborhood, and she had been in that house for at least 20, 30, 40 years, something like that. I mean, a long time. So
Hmm.
he gently like pushes open the door just enough so he can kind of peek into the, house. And he sees this massive pool of blood with like brain matter, like mixed
Oh,
into it. And I'm sorry if I'm
oh.
grossing anybody out, but this is what I got.
No, no, this it's a podcast. It's horror. It's ghost. Go on. Go on.
So he didn't push that door open any further. The story is he, you know, just ran to the next door neighbors. Now, this is before cell phones were really,
Yeah.
popular at the time. I mean, they were just, like a charge like 10 cents a text, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he runs to the neighbor's door and he's banging on the door, and he's like, and they answer, and he's like, I need to call, we got to call 911. So the police come. Well, turns out, um, the husband's laying dead in the front, like walkway, had been dead for a
Yeah.
couple of days. The police go in, they find, now when you walk into the house, when you make that right and you look in, it was this like 22-foot long by maybe like 16-foot wide, massive room. And
Yeah.
there's like a half wall that comes like cut like to the back, that comes in half of
Yeah.
it, and then the other half pushes back and it's a dining area. Okay. on
Yeah.
this on this wall, where there's like a half wall that comes out, there was a couch against it. That's where you had the couch, against the other wall that you'd watch the TV. Well,
Yeah.
she's lying dead also with a gunshot wound to her head, and I'm not going to go
Oh
into
God.
that, but she's also dead too. So it was a murder suicide, and it had looked like he had gotten he she had a gun. He came home. She was waiting for him on the couch. She
Hmm.
confronted him. He went to run out. She clipped him first and then shot him. And when she shot him, she blew like half of his like head off. And then
Yeah.
she turned the gun on herself, and then she killed herself. So there was a
Wow.
murder suicide in this house. Now, I haven't spent a night. This is my first day cleaning in this house.
You haven't. Yeah, hold on. You haven't even spent a night yet. This is a cleaning day.
Uh-huh.
You've just found out.
Right?
Um, the first husband died. The second husband was killed, and then she shot herself.
Correct.
And you're now considering still sleeping the first night. Yeah.
Well, we didn't sleep for a few nights there because it was so dirty, and there was so much
Ah,
dust particles. I didn't want my kids breathing in that
I'm with
stuff.
you. Okay.
So I was cleaning for a few days before we actually did the physical move in. So I would be
Okay.
there during the day when my kids were at school, and I'd be cleaning. So, but needless to say, I was physically sick to my stomach, and I knew at that point I had been watched, and that wall had always, for whatever reason, felt the best word I could describe it for back this time in my life before I really knew what like metaphysical was or spirit world or any of
Yeah.
that, or realized that, my gifts, was it was
Yeah.
charged. It was just, this wall was charged with energy. You could just feel it. It was palpable,
Did you feel like the wall was sort of like, I know it sounds silly, but do you feel like the this charge, something was watching you at that point from that wall at all?
Uh, I was outside talking to her, but before, when I was cleaning, the two windowsills kind of like did like an L shape for the corner of the house, and that wall was
Yeah.
like on the third wall. I felt like very uncomfortable around that wall. And those scary horror movies where you feel the wall and you can see like a hand behind like the wallpaper going down.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt that wall was. Like it was
Oh my
interacting
God.
with me, like it was conscious, like it was
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I can see you, and so my heart's pumping. Okay. Again, I don't
yeah,
have a phone yet. I don't own a cell phone because they were too expensive. I was a single mom with 4 kids. I don't have a
yeah,
telephone, landline yet, because it's a 2-week service order out to get the phone company there. Right.
yeah,
So that night I go home to my sister's house and we sleep. And then I go back in the next couple of days and I keep having these feelings of being watched and everything. But I'm like, April, you're going to have to manage. There's no such thing as ghosts. You're over
yeah,
imagining
yeah,
this. It happened over a decade ago. Like, let it go, blah, 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 blah. So after a few days, I was done cleaning and we move my stuff and I unpack and I get organized enough where we can spend the first night in our home. Now,
mm-hmm.
to our audience and to anybody else that's ever had a haunted experience, I will admit my mind and my imagination was going wild. Okay. So I don't tell
Yeah,
my little kids at the time they're tiny. I don't tell them anything about the house, obviously, because I don't want to scare them. So I get
yeah,
them all put to bed, tucked in. And so the house had like a little addition out in the back. And in that little addition, it had like its own little half bathroom. And it went, there was a door, like a French door that went out to like the back patio, backyard area.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I was like, this is perfect for me because then I can have a little privacy for my children, right? And like have this, like if I want to go out and have a cup of coffee or something in the morning, I can.
mhm,
And so I took the back room. And at the time I was sleeping on like a pull-out trundle. Like I had this twin bed, day bed that had a trundle that pulled out.
yeah,
And I was, going to buy a bigger bed, but I was pulling on this like pull-out trundle, like the lower part. And so I get the kids to bed. I'm quiet. Everything's like calm. And I start to go to sleep. I have this big nightshirt on. And all of a sudden, I start hearing like a humming sound,
mm-hmm.
like a
Yeah,
and I'm thinking, oh, that must be the old refrigerator in the kitchen because it's an old refrigerator and it has one of those
yeah,
really loud,
yeah,
refrigeration systems and it's loud. And so I'm like trying to drift off to sleep and I hear and then I hear a like scratching, like scratching, like the walls are scratching.
oh
I,
shit,
and I hear at the same time I'm hearing like the same time, right? And I'm like, huh,
yeah,
that must be some squirrels on the roof and they're running around. And then so very slightly and faintly it starts getting a little bit louder, and
uh-huh,
then
uh-huh.
and then I hear like and then I hear like then I hear swish 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 swish, and I'm like, oh, this must be tree branches
It's
scratching.
amazing, God, it's amazing what the mind does. I know it's got to be this, it's got to be that. Yeah, it is really trying to calm yourself down, one would think. Yeah,
Well, it's cognitive dissonance, right? Because you don't want to
yeah,
like face what you're in. So
yeah,
then I hear footsteps, on the roof. And I'm like,
yeah.
those are some damn big squirrels. Okay. Maybe it's a raccoon, because at the same time I'm hearing the footsteps, I'm hearing the
Yeah, yeah.
swish, swish, swish. So all these sounds are now not just in conjunction together, overlapping
Mhm.
each other. Now they're
Uh-huh.
becoming louder and louder and louder. So I'm listening for my kids and I don't hear anybody stirring. So I know I'm hearing this, but they're all sleeping. So I'm like, well, they're
Okay.
sleeping. So everything's okay because they don't hear this. It's just my imagination. I can't let my mind succumb to a history of the house because I have a really active imagination, right?
Yeah.
So then I hear like a thud, like a bam, bam,
Yeah.
along with the scratch, 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 swish, 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 bam,
Yeah.
And I'm like, the house must be settling. I'm still trying to.
Oh, for God's
I'm
sake, I would be
still.
out of there. I
I
would be on my bike. I'm telling you.
I was so gripped with fear. I was so petrified. I couldn't even move or speak. I literally put the covers over my head like a
Oh, God.
5-year-old that thinks there's a monster in her closet. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I'm hearing all of these sounds, all of them just growing and growing. And I'm not talking like minutes. I'm talking like at this point, we're talking seconds.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, out of nowhere, my bed violently shakes. I mean, it just moves. There's no explanation. I can't explain this one. And it just boom, boom, boom. And it like shakes me. And I roll because I'm on almost the floor, right? Because it's a pull-out trundle.
Yeah.
I roll off of the bed and I start going, all right, that's it. And I start talking back to the house. And I turn on the light. I'm running around the bedroom. I have a nightshirt on, no phone. I'm looking for a pair of jeans. I find a pair of jeans. I throw them on. I run through the house. Light, 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 light. Kitchen, hallway, bedroom, bathroom, kids' rooms. They're all still sleeping through this. I am, and the noises are going. Bam, 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 bam. But it's not waking my kids up. So I'm thinking, this is in my head. What the hell is going on, So I run to my neighbor's house and I'm banging on the door. And this is probably around 11 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night now. But I saw a TV on. Even if there was no TV on, I would have still banged on the door. And the guy answered, the older gentleman. I said, I'm so sorry. Something's going on in my house. Can I please use your phone? Because I can't call 911. So first call I make is actually to my sister because she lived, the one that was caretaking. We were really close. She lived about 20 minutes away. And I said, and I'm crying at this point, and I'm kind of you can't really understand me because I'm just kind of like in this state of like
incoherent. I
you.
would be.
Yeah,
I would be
shocked. And so I'm like, you got to get over here right now. I don't know what, because I couldn't even drive. I was shaking, like so much. So the guy's looking at me like I've lost my mind, because it's a ghost story, right? So I said, I don't know what's going on, but I think somebody's in the house. And she goes, where are the kids? I'm like, they're sleeping. She's like, get back over to the house. I'm calling 911. So I run to the house. I check on my kids. I'm sitting in the hallway on the floor, kind of like, because the kids' rooms were like 1, 2, and they were like the hallway was between my son's room and the girls' room. So I sat in between with all the lights on and stuff, and I could still hear the sounds. And they would kind of amp up and go down and amp up and go down. So finally, my sister gets there. Now, my sister was a very powerful being. And at the time, she was a high priestess. She was an intuitive. She was a numerologist. So she was very in tune to the metaphysical realm. And it was something that I had kind of been introduced to her, but through her, but I really didn't adopt yet. Okay. So her and her husband come, they spend the night, the cops come, they check the whole house out. They look at the roof, they do everything. No evidence of anybody being like the gates locked from the inside of the gate. There's no leaves, they like got a ladder, they went up to the roof and like shine their flashlight. And this was like, there are leaves and stuff on, but there's nothing was disturbed. There was nothing disturbed, right? The refrigerator went back to normal. There was no, like, if that was the sound, there was no, like, the refrigerator wasn't doing the hum,
and your bed wasn't shaking violently at that point.
Nope. Everything had calmed down. My sister and her husband was there. The cops leave, and the cops look at me like I'm crazy, right? And right? And my sister's like, we'll sleep here. So I'm like, so for the next 2 weeks, I had this little tiny black and white TV that I would sleep on the couch in the living room because I couldn't sleep in the back anymore. And I would have this black and white TV on all night facing my face. And I didn't sleep well. So, I stayed. Okay. And my sister and brother-in-law stayed for a week or two, I want to say. And during their stay, our cat would start hissing. I had a little old Siamese cat, and we'd get up to check it out, and she'd be on her hind legs in the living room, and she'd be hissing at something, looking at something, but nothing was there, and she'd be swatting at it, My son started to wake up and talk in his sleep and sleepwalk, and he was peeing in the corner of the room, using the garbage bin as a toilet because he was asleep.
Wow. So hold on. So pump your brakes here. So I'm getting the picture of this home, and not only do you had the experience before you got the backstory of from the old woman, um, and what happens to anyone that lives in the house, then it all happens with you, only you. The police come, your family come, and now it's affecting your children.
Yes, so it starts affecting my kids. My son's never been a sleepwalker or talker. He starts sleepwalking and talking, and he's doing weird stuff in his sleep. My daughter's like, "Mom, they won't leave me alone. They won't let me sleep."
Oh,
And I'm like, "They." Well, yeah. They talk to us. They talk to us at night. They tell us to come with them and stuff. And I'm like, "What?" Now remember,
God.
this is the infancy of my journey. I don't know anything. My sister's more in line.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So then my sister one night wakes me up, middle of the night. I'm on the couch sleeping. And she's like shaking me awake, and because I'd finally fallen asleep. April. She goes, "You're not gonna believe." I go, "What?" She's like, "Wow." I was because I had one of those bunk beds in my daughter's room that it was a twin on top and a full size on the bottom. So my
Yeah,
brother and my sister were in law, and my sister was sleeping in that bed. She's
yeah.
like, "I got really mad at Alan because in the middle of the night when I woke up because the blankets where he was hugging the blankets, and I pulled the blankets on my side and rolled over and said, 'Damn it, Alan, you're hugging on the blankets.'" She's like, "There was no one there, but there was an indent in the bed."
Oh my God. Hold it there. So she wakes up in the middle of the night and she's really angry with her husband, saying
Right.
he pulled the blankets off her. She rolls over to have a further go at her husband, and there's nobody there.
Nobody's there, but there's an indent where a body should be laying, but there's no
Oh,
body.
right.
Like the bed is depressed, but her
Yeah, yeah,
husband's
yeah. I
not
hear
laying in
you.
there. Okay. So
Okay.
during the time that she stayed with me, that happened several times. The humming, the scratching, the thudding continued. The TV would come on and off. The little one that I had by my face would come on and off on its own. We heard conversations of like people talking like this, you could hear them
Yeah, yeah,
talking,
yeah, yeah.
but you couldn't make out actual like sentences, but you could kind of hear them talking like this, but you would hear like
Yeah, yeah,
a man and a woman talking, you would hear the voices spike and go back down.
yeah.
You sometimes we could hear like glasses clanking, like cheers, like toast, or like it was like you could hear several people like they were having like a house party.
Did you come to any realization at some point? It's always hindsight's a bitch, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, the
There
house
were
is haunted.
yeah, the house is haunted, but
Yeah.
never mind. You got a double murder. The house doesn't like people, obviously, but you've got other guests living in the house that you're in, and you're still staying there.
Well, right, because remember I had no money at this time. I had spent all my money in the house. So my sister
Fair
and
play.
husband, go ahead.
No, I said fair play. Fair play.
Yep.
I get that because
So
someone's going to ask, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you leave? But you had no money to move. You'd put
I
everything into the deposit.
I did. So my cat gets sick and eventually dies. And I mean, and in all
Hold
fairness,
on, hold on, hold on. Slow down. So next, your cat.
yeah, well, it was a very old Siamese cat. So it could have been old
Hmm.
age. I
Hmm.
don't know, but eventually the cat passes away. We were there for a little while. I would put my keys down on the table, like in a bowl. I'd come back, to get them the next morning to go to work, and they'd be gone. It would take me an hour. I'd look all around the
Wow.
house. I'd go back to the bowl. They'd be in the bowl.
Okay.
So I'm thinking to myself, I'm losing my mind. Like it started to
Mhm.
make me feel like
Yeah.
I was losing my mind. Okay. Like
Would you, on that, in hindsight, before we go on, do you think the house did that to all the previous tenants?
well, I'm going to get there in a minute.
Oh, I'm jumping ahead here. I'm getting excited. Go ahead.
So my sister leaves and I was alone in the house and everything just got worse. She was kind of like she did blessings. We read from the Bible.
Hmm.
At the time I was very identified with a Christian faith, and
Yeah.
I was really, and I did like when I got shook out of that bed, I'll tell you, I screamed for Jesus to protect me.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
God to make it stop. Like I was so scared,
It
right?
must have been horrifying. It must have been like a bit out of The Exorcist.
I
It
could
must
tell
have
you
been awful.
I could tell you what I was wearing. I was wearing a pink long nightshirt that I got when I was in the army. And when I found the pair of jeans, they were 501 Levi jeans that I and 501s have
Yeah.
buttons. So I didn't even button them. I buttoned the top button and had this like long nightshirt almost to my ankles and no shoes when I ran to the neighbors and pounded on the door to call
God.
911, FYI.
Uh-huh.
So my sister left. It got worse, and I wasn't getting any sleep, and my work started to suffer. And at the time, my boss, I worked for an agency. I'm going to leave it at that. And
Yeah.
she was an Asian American woman, and very very superstitious, very and she started to see me come in with bags under my eyes, no makeup, my clothes weren't ironed.
Yeah.
I was just exhausted, like exhausted, because I was really really worried about my children. Okay,
Yeah.
and it was messing with them. It was keeping them awake, it was talking to them, it was making them sleepwalk and talk, but it wasn't hurting them, but it was definitely focused on breaking me down.
Would
Okay.
you say, would it say for it was like sleep deprivation?
Oh, completely. Complete sleep.
Yeah.
I was sick to my stomach. Yeah. And so I broke down. I started crying. I told her everything and she freaked out. She's like, "You have got to get out of there today. I will authorize the time." I'm like, "You don't understand. I can't leave. I don't have any money." And so she said, "I don't care. I will give you the money to get out of there. You have got to this is not good. It's not going to get any better. And I'm afraid for the
Mm-hmm.
kids." Because she loved my kids, my kids would come into work with
Mm-hmm.
me sometimes and everything. So I broke the lease and a little about 2.5, 3 months into it, I broke the lease and I found a house a few blocks away. And then the in
Mm-hmm.
between, excuse me. In the in
All
between,
right.
I had made friends with the neighbors that lived across the street. There were two teenage boys. Their father was French. They were half French, half American.
Mm-hmm.
And they would come out. They would help me with, like, if I had to run an errand, I would take the kids over there and they would watch kids while I like ran to like Target and grab some food or whatever. So
Yeah. Yeah.
they would love my kids. They were like 15, 16 at the time. So when I moved a few blocks away, like I'd cook them dinner. In fact, when I went to Disneyland, I took the two of the boys with me on to
Mm-hmm.
Disneyland with me because we got close. Um, so that all happened, and when we moved out, they told me, as well as their father and a couple other neighbors, that after we left, the lights in the house would go on. The electricity was turned off, right? The lights in the house would go on and off and on and off and on and off, like a disco. Like you would just see the
Do,
lights.
do you think the ghosts in the house was celebrating they got rid of another family?
I don't
Seriously.
know. I don't know, but they said that the thing that creeped them out the most was at times at like in the middle of the night, because they would hear like banging or thudding when the
Yeah.
light would go on. Because he goes, "Well, one time I got up and I checked," and he goes, "and I saw a shadow of like a figure in the front window, where like when you walked into the house there and you faced a
Yeah.
closet, there was a window there." And he goes, "And there
Uh-huh.
was like a shadow, like a
Oh,
silhouette of a person standing
oh Lord.
there when the lights would go off and on." And they knew that the electricity had been turned off and there was nobody living in the house.
Lord.
So the house stayed empty for many, many years, and I lost track of it about 15, 20 years ago. So I have no idea what the status of the house is now, and nor do I want to. But I do know that eventually I did know that about, I guess, like 15 years, 10, 15 years ago, I went to visit, and it had sold, and somebody. So here's the deal. When I said I'd get back to it, down the street is the oldest cemetery that Sacramento has, and
Uh-huh.
I think it's called Sutter Cemetery, and like the Sutter, John Sutter himself, and some other like explorers and gold miners and things like that are buried in that cemetery. The
Mm-hmm.
house faced a diagonal angle on a corner, and
Mm-hmm.
the way that the house faced on the diagonal corner, now knowing what I know now, I think it was some kind of like a portal or a vortex. And I
Uh-huh.
think that whatever was in that wall that really creeped me out, that half wall, there was
Yeah.
I know this sounds weird, but I feel like that was like the catalyst. That was like where the vortex was, and that's where like the
Mm-hmm.
evil would come in and out of. And I think that's
Yeah.
what drove that woman to kill her husband and herself. That's what I end up. The conclusion I came to.
I mean, well, yeah, I think I would eventually come to, after I'd freaked out, lost my mind, and had therapy after such an experience. I think I would have come to that conclusion also. I mean, you've got to look at it. You go into the home, things already start happening. You just feel you're being watched. At that point, you're not into spirituality or anything like that. There's no internet to put preconceived whatevers, and you're just feeling it. As soon as you get, and then you have the old lady. She sets the scene for you. But I think you'd already set the scene, because before you met the old lady, you were talking out loud, going, "Oh yeah, a little old lady's going to come along and tell me something."
Uh-huh.
And boy, did she! And never mind the fact that you've still got the, like you see in crime scene programs where they cut the carpet out or the floor out because it's got brain matter and blood in it. They've cut that out and they haven't even replaced it. I mean, come on. And then you can see by all the episodes that went on, how it started. These people didn't want you in the house, April, like the previous tenants, and even try to affect your sister. I mean, God help us, if your sister and her husband lived in the house, she'd end up killing her husband the same way. Do you know what happened to the son?
I don't. I don't know what ended up happening to the kids. I mean, the house was obviously, after they died, there was an estate, and they ended up selling the house, and an investor bought it. That's who had the house, but it was tainted with, this is, I mean, yes, murder suicides in the US did happen, but for a woman to kill a man and then herself, do you know how rare
It's
that
rare.
is?
That's rare. I mean, that's like, yeah, that is rare. That's like the house is doing it. I want to put it out there to anyone who's listening now or who will listen to this podcast. Give the name of the street and the place if anyone still lives in that area, or if anyone has any information about this house that October spoke about. Email me at openmindspodcast@outlook.com. What's the name of the street and the area?
I don't want to give that, but I will say it's on a corner, and they'll know this. It's on a corner of Land Park, and it's behind Target. They'll know.
Right. There
Yeah.
you know. So if you live in that area, or you've heard anything, how long have you been out the house now, April?
Oh gosh. 30 years. 28 years.
Because I'm so curious, who was the next family that moved in? How many double homicides happened, or how many people run away just like you did? I mean, when you look back now, obviously at the time when we have these experiences, they really are scary, especially when you get, like the activity, the shaking of the bed and all of this going on. But now, where you are today, with the understanding you have, can you explain what you think happened and what it truly was?
I think that the cemetery, I think there's some dark stuff in Sacramento. It's an older city. It's built on the gold rush, and it's also built on exploration of California. And I think that like I said, I think it's a portal or a vortex or something, because the house sits in such a funky angle that I think somehow the cemetery and the house almost have like a mutual exchange of energy that comes like through.
Well, I think I would agree with that. In other words, if you live in the house, you die in the house, you're buried in the cemetery. I think there's a connection there already going. It's more likely been going on way back, even after the gold rush. I mean, that's some strong energy to have families to go into conflict and murder each other.
Yeah, I mean, this is, all I know is that this happened to me, and if somebody offered me $100,000 to step back in that house, I wouldn't do it.
No. I mean, I've had many experiences myself, but not to that extent. Recently I told you, when I went over to the Isle of Wight and I stayed in the hotel for the dead, it was jam packed. Knocking on my door. I mean, I'm in a different place now. Knocking on my door, turning on the shower, turning on the lights. That if that had happened back in the day, I would have been out on my bike. I just wouldn't. But you've got to see, this is where people say, well, why didn't you run away? But we've touched on that. You had no money. How could you? You got your kids. You got 4 kids. Where are you going to go with 4 kids?
I
You
know.
can't. And who's going to believe you back in the day?
Oh, right.
Who's going to believe you?
I mean, I was embarrassed to tell my boss because I was like, they're going to think I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm. So now, since coming out of the house and, going through the process of your spirituality, would you say that experience, even though scary at the time, would you say that experience gave you a better understanding of you? Like, I must be that intuitive if I can pick this up and even recognize the danger signs now?
Well, I mean, I definitely have learned to trust my intuition because when I said, like I said, I looked at the house before I rented it, like real quick, like opened the front door, looked in and said, okay, like I didn't,
Yeah,
I did like
yeah.
a huge, and I had a feeling like this is weird. Like, why hasn't this been lived in so long? Right. And I had that gut feeling of like, this isn't good. But then I was like, it's your imagination. Don't
Yeah, yeah,
ghost stories. Come on,
yeah,
don't, it was so cheap. Right. So
yeah.
I was like, oh, this is a
Yeah,
great
well, I'm
deal.
not surprised. It's like a trap. You know what I mean? It's like offering candy to a kids. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I got to ask you after that experience, and if you walked into a property now and you picked up that, would you go into that house and stay there this now?
Oh, heck no.
No, no,
Uh-uh. No, no.
no.
No, no,
I mean,
no.
I'm just really curious what happened to the next tenants and the next tenants. So I put it out there again, everybody. If you are in this area or you know of any stories of what happened to anyone that lived in that house, please email me at openmindspodcast@outlook.com. Before we close the show, I got to thank you. I mean, when I read this, I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm so not scared, but I'm so anxious. I'm not even reading the reason why you didn't leave the house. That's how it gripped me. That's how this story gripped me. You've got to visualize living in that sign. I couldn't do it. But you've recently moved again. You didn't pick the house. I just want to touch on this before we go, because yeah. She knows where I'm going. You guys, you're getting a bit extra here. And it wasn't you that picked the house. It was the infamous Chris. Give the audience a little taster, and it's a very nice house. So what I'm trying to do, those that are listening, not every home, not every spirit or every ghost is scary. Okay, there are some that are about that it's absolutely okay. Here we go. Tell us about the house you're in now,
Well,
April.
I will say this too. So that was in the mid 90s. And then in 99, right? Like at the end of the 99, when 2000 was Y2K was coming, I moved to New England and lived in Salem, Massachusetts, and lived in a haunted house there and saw a
We'll bring
full.
her back for that. This girl attracts it. So
Yeah.
she then goes, listen, she moves to Salem. That's one. Yeah, go on.
And it's a three family, which means that the first, second, and third floor are all broken into separate apartments. But it used to be a big mansion house, and this is where all the captains and for the port of Salem used to live back in the 16, 17, 1800s. And so this was an old captain's house. So I move in with my baby. Lots of stuff happened in that. My baby was attacked. We found her one night with the window open in her room, and the crib moved all the way to the window with the side of the crib pulled down. So all
save that one. We'll bring you back on for that one. Save that one, because we're just still getting over the first one.
And then I lived in a house. Go ahead.
Go forward, because I want the audience to realize that you attract these places.
Then I lived in a house that was built in 1600 in a place called Raleigh, Massachusetts, and that one as well. My dog and my youngest had a lot of experiences, and visitors would also be like one night my sister had been visiting from California and she was sleeping upstairs. Now these are the old pine floors. It had the old fireplace where like you would hang a cauldron in to like cook your stew and stuff. It's built in 1600 or 17. It was like it's really old, right? And wakes up to see this woman sitting on the bed covering my two younger daughters. And the woman just slowly turns her head and looks at my sister and gives her like a tilt of the head and her eyes raised, like, "Who are you?"
Oh
And my
God.
sister goes, "It's okay. I'm their auntie." And she's psychic too, but she's like, "I'm their auntie.
Yeah.
I will not hurt them. I love them. They're my nieces." And so
Hmm.
she turns back slowly to my girls, covers them up, and evaporates.
Wow.
And I had experiences in that house too, but not anything, nothing negative. My daughter had
No.
some negative stuff, but that I didn't
Mm.
have any negative happen there.
Okay.
Yeah. So the house we're
What
in
comes
now.
after that?
Oh, geez. I moved around a lot, so
Well, bring it,
um,
bring it. I mean, we'll get you back on the podcast to tell definitely the second house, but bring it now to the house
well, I'm
that
in
Chris
now.
chose.
So
Let's call it the house that Chris chose.
so I really wanted to live in Loveland, Colorado, which is about 15 miles away. But
Mhm.
Chris had found this house in Fort Collins, and this house was built in 1890. I know your audience is like, is this lady crazy or what? But yes,
Yeah.
it was built in 1890, and it was moved here in like the 30s or 40s. So again, this house is cut up. It's funky. It's got funky rooms. It's got old creepy red wallpaper and parts of it with burlap ceilings. I can't even describe this to you. And
Hmm.
the upstairs is like a big loft area that's an A-frame that has a couple skylights. One room is kind of cordoned off with like a door and a wall. And then there's this little tiny like peak room that's hopefully going to be my yoga hangout here soon. But well, we hear footsteps, we hear doors opening and shutting. When we first moved in, I'd say for like the first week, we would we would hear our bed, like, like we have a wrought iron bed, and we would hear like knocking on the bed. We would hear footsteps, we'd hear door shuts, and I would feel, and my dog would wake up and look in the air and be shaking, just staring at the air, and it's cold, but it was really cold,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm like going to Chris, wake up, wait, do you see? Because don't talk about it right now. Just shh. Do you feel this? Like we're being watched. Like I think for the first few weeks we were kind of being checked out. It's calmed down,
Yeah.
but we still hear stuff, and
Yeah.
we've had doors open. We've there's activity in here, but I don't feel like it's negative. And I feel like
No. No.
upstairs is somewhat of a, like, I call it a dimensional hallway. And I know
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
for people that don't know this, it's gonna sound odd, but it's definitely where things are going in and out. So we leave the upstairs pretty much alone.
Yeah.
We don't go up there to stay up there. We don't really have a need to.
No. So
Yeah. So
again, the visitors live upstairs in your new house now, while you
mhm.
live downstairs. I mean, you look at it because you've got a track record of doing this, yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to say, um, okay, we know what these energies are. They're residue energies, echoes of past trauma experiences, and houses are made of brick and mortar and matter, and they carry energy just like crystals do. So we know that happens. However, did you ever think from leaving the house in Sacramento that something followed you all through your homes? Or did you just happen to choose houses that were so haunted it was unbelievable?
I think that that kicked off my awakening in a
Yeah,
respect, like, because of my gifts of because I mean, who says some little old lady's going to come up and tell me somebody died in here? I knew that instinctively. I didn't understand at
yeah,
the time intuitively that I knew
yeah,
that was going to happen,
yeah,
and 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 I was being watched, right? But I didn't kind of put those dots together at the time.
yeah,
But what happened was, after that, I kind of I obviously believed. I got really much more into what happens after we die. And
yeah.
it wasn't from a Abrahamic religion aspect of like
Hmm.
go to heaven, go to hell. It was more of like there's energy that we don't understand,
Hmm.
and somehow it gets trapped in
Hmm.
certain places, and there's got to be a reason why. And why am I seeing this or hearing this or
Yeah,
feeling this?
yeah,
Like, why me?
yeah,
And then it turns out, like, you go through this and you start like looking into your family history. Now, my grandmother was half Native American. She's Cherokee Choctaw. I ended up finding
Mhm.
out that my great grandmother was a medicine woman for the Choctaw tribe in Oklahoma in the
Mhm.
1800s. So, like, I have a family history of, the seeing, the
Yeah.
knowing.
Yeah.
Like, and I
Yeah.
didn't know. I knew I was different and unique,
Yeah.
but I didn't understand until all of this happened. Like, this
Mhm.
solidified my belief that there's something after we die.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, there's all ghost stories don't always end up in a bad way unless you're trapped in that house and you kill your family. And I don't say it lightheartedly because I've heard many stories about this and people try to debunk them. No, you can't. If you're experiencing that, your mind's not, you're not hallucinating. Your hallucination will not, make physical matter move. Um, it just doesn't work that way. So, but for me, it's just been a wonderful conversation. I have, since I got your email, I've waited to have this conversation with you. I think it's amazing. And I hope if you're watching it live or if you watch it on a rerun, that you really get into it. And email me at openmindspodcast@outlook.com. What do you think about the Sacramento ghost? Or should I say the house? The house that
Um,
doesn't like the house that doesn't like visitors. What do you think was going on? Um, October's given you her interpretation. What do you think happened? And also, if you have a ghost story or paranormal experience, email me at openmindspodcast@outlook.com. Who knows? I may bring you on the show. If you don't want to come onto the show, I can read your ghost story out for you. So anything you want to add at the end of this, my love? Anything? It's been fantastic. This is a pilot podcast, and I think it's awesome. Anything you want to add?
well, I will say that if you're having any issues in a home, or if you're just intrigued with, like, I know ghost hunting now is a big deal, don't do something silly like buy a ghost box or a
Yeah, don't do
EVP
it. Don't
reader
do it.
and go
Yeah,
start like taunting them, say, hey, talk to me. Don't do that,
yeah.
because
No.
you don't know what you're attracting, and that's never
Yeah.
a good idea. It's like going,
Mhm.
it's like rolling around in chum and going out in the ocean and not expecting to get bit by a
Yeah.
shark. So just because,
Absolutely, I agree with you.
be
It's the worst thing to do.
yeah, and if you are in a situation where you do have a haunting, our natural instinct, if we don't understand something that's not tangible, we get afraid. The worst
Hmm.
thing you can do is be fearful, because if it is a negative entity, it's going to feed off of that. So
Hmm.
calm calm yourself down, and whatever your belief system is, rely on that to try to figure it out. And if you still can't make any kind of peace, and you're still having issues, or you're scared or whatever, then go to a medium, or an intuitive or shaman, or a pastor, someone that can help
Hmm.
navigate you through this
Hmm.
time.
I mean, and I would like to add mine. I spent most of my life as a rescue medium, and I'd go in where, a lot of the things had happened, not as bad as what's been shared on this podcast. And when I've gone in as a medium, it was just those some of people that have died, the spirit, they don't know they've died, and
Hmm.
they're still carrying on as normal, or they can't find their family members. They're looking, they get frustrated, and they're trying to get your attention, just to get your attention. And sometimes they're like kids having a temper tantrum because the people in the house can't see them.
Hmm.
And you can get mediums to come in. You need to get a really good one though, to come in and do rescue me, and they have a conversation with the spirit and talk the spirit down and get them to realize that they've already passed. This is a common phenomena that is mistook for evil, demonic, and the blah blah blah.
Hmm.
So there's many ways to look at this, and if anything, if you become more informed, I don't watch these entertaining paranormal go in and swear at the ghost thing. I would never do that. I'd
No,
never do that. But
that'd be like
if you,
somebody going to your house and cussing you
yeah,
out. You'd be like, what are you doing?
absolutely.
Get out. What are you doing here?
Can you imagine the karma that's coming back to these? But they have no idea. So, but seek information. If you feel like, oh, it's not as scary as I thought, because there's nothing wrong with being scared. It's part of the human experience. We all get scared at things. So when we're younger and we don't know much about anything, we get scared because it's fearful. But when we get older, we come to a realization, it was just that. So it's just like, you have a friend that is really, all of a sudden, she's just throwing temper tantrums all the time. And you go, oh, what's wrong with her? And just something's happened to her. Just something's happened to her and she's confused. The spirit gets confused. They don't know where they are. They don't know, even some of them, even how they died. So I hope that sort of gave you a bit more information about the ghost stories. But I will continue with these, and hopefully the whole point of the podcast is to share the stories, but give you some information about the experiences that's going on, not our beliefs, whatever you choose to take and resonate with you. Now, I've got to say before we close today, next week, I have case number 2. And next week, believe it or not, we've named this one the accidental medium. The accidental medium. And it actually follows on from tonight. It is a really incredible ghost story. October, thank you so much for joining me this evening live.
Oh, and you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be on your pilot episode. It means a lot, and glad I could share this experience, and hopefully the audience, if they're experiencing anything, got something positive out of it.
I hope so too. And as I said, if you have your own ghost story, or you'd like to, give me some feedback on this pilot podcast, email me at openmindspodcast@outlook.com. I'm Gloria, and this is Open Minds Podcast, Waking the Dead Ghost Stories.
Bye-bye.
Bye.